So I have a group of friends, right? And we all have a chat. Now this chat is on text message, iPhone. Listen, bro, we're in the 21st century. Like, you have to have this. I ain't got WhatsApp for that. But we all have a group chat, and it consists of my sister, Jesse, my brother-in-law Sam, my girlfriend Raquel, me, Ivan, and then you have my cousin Milena, which is pretty much like, oh yeah, she's my god sister. I just call her my cousin. But then you have another really good friend of mine, Millie, and we've all known each other. Well, I've known every one of us since we were like two, except for my sister. I've known her obviously since I was born. But the whole entire group chat that we have, we're all really close. We used to go to my sister Jesse's house all the time and throw parties, whether it was for the NBA playoffs, when the Miami Heat had their glorious run from 2011 to 2014, and we would go to the NBA finals every year. And I mean, every Super Bowl, anytime we all wanted to get together and have a little party, we would always go to Jesse's house. It was always her house, her house, her house, and we were always having a blast. It would be wild. We'd even have like little game nights where we take board games and everything and go over there and watch them. Obviously, we used to watch movies as well. So one of the things that we did, because Milena's not usually with the hype, and she had never seen any Star Wars movie, like any at all. And I'll never forget the first time that we went to my sister's house. We're like, let's watch Star Wars, bro. I think we watched episode 4, 5, and 6 all there for the first time for Milena, and she did not, like, she couldn't believe her. She couldn't believe she missed out on all these movies, and she ultimately fell in love with the whole entire Star Wars franchise because we started watching them. I think she ended up watching 1, 2, and 3 by herself, and 7, 8, and 9. But she was super happy because she loved them, and she to this day she loves them like completely. So one day, we're text messaging and we're talking about the multiverse of madness, which is Doctor Strange's like movie, the most recent one. And everybody was like, "Bro, this movie's hype." Blah 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 blah. And Milena's like, "You know what? I've never seen any MCU movie." And I think everybody in the chat they couldn't believe what they had just a text message from that. I mean, if you think about it, every like at phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 movies always either on TBS or TNT, always, and nobody could believe it. I think all of us were shocked at the fact that she had never ever seen any MCU movie. So we all got together. Oh, Millie mostly. She was the one that she was like, let's make a movie day where we can all watch movies of the MCU starting from the beginning to the end. And I think she said this about 4 or 5 months ago. And what's crazy is that we've only seen one movie, and we didn't even watch it in order, bro. We put the first one as Captain America. The first one that ever, I mean, if you think about it, theatrical or the storyline, I think the first one is not even Captain America. Is it? I have no idea, but we ended up watching Captain America first. I really did think that was the first ever movie, but I was completely wrong, and it's actually Iron Man from 2008. But the real question that I have here, it's funny because this is the entire intro to our third episode of our podcast. But welcome to episode 3, the MCU. Is it real cinema? Has it changed cinema or not? Because the reason why I asked this question on Shall We Speak is because a lot of people do not think that superhero movies are real cinema. Now, I have to say, before I answer this question, what makes a movie, right? You need directors, you need actors, and you need a good script. I think that the MCU movies all have this, and they've built something that nobody thought would be possible. I mean, if you think about it, Star Wars did it, but like a very long time ago. But the MCU is most recently. I think we've seen like Star Trek movies and stuff like that, which I'm not a big fan of Star Trek, but I do know that they had shows, they had movies, and they're successful. But as of recently, everything has been MCU. So it all started with phase 1. And if phase 1 wasn't successful, I don't think none of this would have been done. I think that if they failed in phase 1, phase 2, 3, 4, and everything that's coming out now would not have existed. But do I think it has changed cinema? Of course. I think that the people that don't think that, they might be losers, or they might just say, oh, that it's just box office hits or whatever. But in my opinion, they really have changed it. As I said earlier, the movie has to have a good plot, a good story. You also have editors that are editing CGI and everything. I think everybody deserves awards, really, when it comes down to this, because there's been a bunch of like directors that don't film or don't direct superhero movies, but they say it's not good. It's not considered real cinema. But I beg to differ. Like, that is not true whatsoever. I think that everybody who has been a part of the MCU has done a pretty fantastic job, or who has ever like touched a piece of the MCU. It's been great. On top of that, I feel like all the actors from the start, they actually paved the way for this to become such a big thing, and they made the role like literally theirs. Like I don't see anybody like Robert Downey Jr. I don't see anybody else playing Iron Man but him. That's how much I love this whole entire MCU, and all the actors that played the big parts. But anyway, so the first movie, has it changed cinema? Of course it has, and we're talking about Phase One, by the way. I might like drift off into like saying other things, but Phase One is what I'm mostly going to be talking about today. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go into Phase 2, 3, and 4, or if I'm going to be dropping them in episodes or not. But I think it's a pretty cool topic. I do have a little Discord. There are some people who don't really like the MCU on my Discord server, or they just don't like superhero movies in general. But there are some people that I actually have a full conversation with. They love it. And one of the things that I have to say is I never read the comic books. Like, this is something like I don't read. When I was a kid growing up, I didn't like to read. I would only read if I had a homework assignment or something. And I obviously had to do, read your books, write about them, stuff like that. But I never read books. And I think my mom hated me for that. She was like, man, you never read, blah, blah, blah. I recently started getting into reading because it's pretty cool. I think the only books I ever read was probably like Harry Potter, but I didn't read them all. I don't think I read like 5, 6, and 7. I only read 1 through 4 or some parts of 5, but I mostly sort of read them because I saw a movie. So I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. But you know how sometimes movies don't go good into books. So, I mean, books go good into movies. So obviously things change, but whatever. The MCU, I never read any whatsoever comics. I recently started reading the Infinity Gauntlet because of the whole thing that had happened with Infinity War and then Endgame. But I recently started doing that. I hadn't done that now. And I do like the changes, though, that they did. And I do know why they did them is because they didn't own at the time 20th Century Fox and all these things. But, I mean, Disney's Disney, bro. They're going to own things. And they want to own everything Marvel to make everything good. So I did watch before, let's just get a little recap of where I started doing things like related to comic books. I think everybody as a kid loves Spider-Man, loves Batman or whatever, but you don't really know anything. You just like the superhero because you like the toys or the comic books. Because remember, when we were kids, we used to have Teen Titans on the TV. We used to have Justice League. We had Batman, the animated series. You had Superman, the animated series. I still have these on Blu-ray and DVD right there on my bookshelf because I grew up watching those shows. And I also ended up watching, obviously, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 with Tobey Maguire. I watched The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. And I did watch the X-Men originals with Hugh, it's Hugh. Listen, I think it's Jackman. But listen, I watched all of them. And obviously, they didn't really expand on that because I think, obviously, it's different owners. Sony owns Spider-Man, and then 20th Century Fox had, the rights to Fantastic Four and all these people. Oh, I also watched the Fantastic Four. But I loved those movies as a kid, except for like Spider-Man 3 or whatever, because some were not that good. But they didn't explore the universe until obviously they started doing the MCU, and the way they did them is crazy. Now, another thing that I did want to say is that the MCU has changed, and it has, it's done everything to cinema. It really has. If you look at the box office hits, I only know the top 2, and the reason why I know the top 2 is because the number 1 was Endgame, bro. It was phenomenal, dog. It was a movie that everybody went to go watch it. And I think for like the 4th or 5th time, what's this guy's name? The Avatar, Cameron. He ended up dropping Avatar in theaters for a 4th or 5th time, and he had to take the record. He was like, "I'm not going out here without taking this record." So he wanted to get top. And I think Endgame only came out once in theaters, maybe twice, but I think once, and it broke the record. So the fact that James Cameron is number 1 again, because Avatar is going to be dropping. I guess he dropped it again just so everybody could see it. But man, it's crazy. They own, like, MCU. Listen, comic book movies are really making a comeback. I mean, everybody is literally memeing Morbius, and they had to drop it in theaters once again. And everybody's like going crazy. Everybody's like, let's go watch Morbius. And even though a bunch of people think it's so bad, People love it because of the memes. If you go on Twitter, I think the memes are just wild to me. But whatever. So we got Phase 1. We got Iron Man in 2008. So if you watch that movie, that's how it all started. Tony Stark, which is played by damn it, I just said his name. Why am I forgetting? Robert Downey Jr. He did a phenomenal job. I think the story, everything was great. I mean, back then, listen. One thing I do have to say though, from 2008, the movies for superheroes are completely different. Like back then in the 2000s, early 2000s to 2000, probably like 10. Now they are a lot different. Like I think the script writing and everything was better before, but the storytelling, like you get me, the script and the acting is better now. But I think that back then the story was better. But Robert Downey Jr. still played a phenomenal thing. Anyway, so Iron Man in 2008, phenomenal. At the end of the movie, you end up seeing that he goes up to some guy at a bar and he's like, yo, I'm working on this project. I think it was like that. And then that's where you see the Incredible Hulk. Iron Man came out in 2008, and then you got Incredible Hulk coming out in the same year. And what's wild about that is that they changed the actor, obviously, to Ruffalo. And I can't think of who the actor was again. I do know that he's in Fight Club. One thing we talk about in Fight Club is that we don't talk about it. We don't talk about Fight Club. But whatever. He was the original Incredible Hulk, and that movie's phenomenal. Now, as I said earlier, I did think that Captain America: The First Avenger was the first movie, but it's actually in the first phase. It's the second last movie, and I think that we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 movies in Phase 1. It's the 5th movie, Captain America 1, and spoiler alert, if you have not seen Captain America 1, bro, like just go watch it. But I am going to say the biggest spoiler right now at the end. Captain America does live, but he has like some nukes on a plane, so he has to drop it down into Antarctica. So whatever, he drops down and he gets frozen in ice pretty much. Now, if you end up watching The Incredible Hulk in 2008, it's wild to me because they thought about this years in advance. At the beginning of Incredible Hulk, he goes to like try shooting himself from something, but Incredible Hulk obviously comes out, breaks the gun, makes him survive, and then he hits, because he's in Antarctica, so he hits the ice, and a bunch of things start to go crazy. And I recently found this out, but if you see the ice block lift up, you actually see Captain America frozen with his shield in one of those little frames. But it's like one of those like 0.5 or 1 second frames that you have to like watch it quickly, because if you don't get it, you're never gonna see it. And I recently found this out. I was like, I think I was looking at Incredible Hulk and something popped up on the little, you know, when you Google something or you do something on YouTube and it pops up there as your suggestions. So I was like, what? So I pressed it and I saw that video. I was like, hey, I cannot believe that. That thing about, if you ever watch MCU or any Star Wars film, there's always things in the background. Always. Like there's something that you got to pay attention to everywhere. There's an Easter egg in everything. And that's one of the things that I think everybody loves about these movies. I mean, probably in Star Trek, they even have little Easter eggs thrown here and there. But if you ever watch MCU, always look at in the background. Pay attention, because there will always be a little Easter egg. And even if a character says something that you might think is nothing, that thing actually means something bigger, which is crazy to me. But yeah, for example, when we watch Star Wars, I think Revenge of the Sith, and I know that the directors are like really, really good friends. You see like Lucasfilms and I can't remember the other, but E.T., bro, you see him in the background. You see E.T. in the background. To me, when I was a kid, I was like, yo, that's E.T. What is he doing in Star Wars, bro? It was crazy. But always pay attention in the background of these movies. Always. And when I first found out that Captain America was pretty much hit in Incredible Hulk, it blew my mind. Then obviously you have Iron Man 2. And then I don't think that movie was bad, but I thought it was pretty good. But I'll never forget that at the end of Iron Man 2, then you see Nick Fury. I don't think it was Iron Man at the end that you see Nick Fury or you see Iron Man 2. But they're setting something up. And I remember leaving the theaters and I told my brother-in-law about this whole thing. Avengers. Big deal. Not big deal. I was excited. Thor was at the end of Iron Man 2. That's when you see Thor. And you see the Thor's hammer. And like I said, at the time, I didn't really know who Thor was. And I told him, oh, what's happening? He's like, there's going to be a Thor movie, bro. I'm like, who the hell's Thor? I looked it up. That man's a god, bro. He's a god. And I didn't even realize that. Then you have Captain America: The First Avenger, which is probably the movie that I think I can relate to the most, because that's the movie that I watched the most, thinking it was the first one. But bro, I am so dumb. I've seen probably Captain America: The First Avenger like 8 times in my life. And every time I watch it, it's like, man, I'm watching it again. Like, why, bro? Why am I watching it again? But obviously it brings greater things. And then at the end, 2012, that's when I either got out of high school in summer, but that's where Avengers comes in. And as a kid, like I still consider myself as a kid when I was in high school. You know, I think everybody does until you're like 18 or 19 in college. It's different. But bro, Avengers, bro, that movie was popping. I'll never forget watching. Listen, I think I said I've never forget about like 80 times, but it's because I'm talking about the past. Like sometimes I'll say things over and over and over again, but as a Miami guy, I do have to make an episode of all the things that us Miamians say, but I do repeat sometimes the same word just because it's in the past, and it's things that I can't, I have to relate to. So Avengers came out. I was super hyped. I almost said hyped. I was super hyped. I went to the movie. I was like, this is the greatest superhero movie ever. They brought Loki as the villain and everything, and that's when I really got into it. That's the whole entire phase one. Like I said, if it didn't do good, I don't think it would have ever done. I don't think anything else would exist. After Avengers, that's when you start noticing everything that's going on and what they're trying to do. So we first saw like in Captain America 1, the stone, but we didn't know it was a stone. We thought it was a tesseract. I've never read the comics. So as a kid, when I was watching these movies and I Googled things and you find out that that's a stone, you're like, what the hell's the stone? And I'll never forget, bro. My brother-in-law was like, yo, things are going to get rowdy with this. And sure enough, they really have. The movies have gotten good. The movies have changed cinema history. And I just cannot wait for the future. Now, I will probably talk about phase 2 and phase 3 and phase 4 on other days. But this the first 6 movies really did change the way we all view superhero movies nowadays. I think that the hype for them is real, and I know that some people might not like them, but just like everything, it'll continue to have that success. And with the fact that Disney has been they just bought 20th Century Fox. We're probably going to get Fantastic Four. We're going to get a bunch of things in the MCU that we didn't even imagine. So I just can't wait to see where it's going. But guys, episode 3 of the podcast has been such a blast. I know that I've only made 3 episodes, and the first one was pretty much just like a first starter. But for my podcast, I just do plan on doing a bunch of them. You get me? I plan on doing 1, 2, 3. Just keep going and just having fun with it, just speaking my mind. And it doesn't matter if it's entertainment, comedy, scary, or whatever. I just hope you guys enjoy every single thing. And I know that I've gotten a couple comments on my recent ones. My episode 2 about coffee, which is our last. It's funny because we just went from like coffee all the way to the MCU. I don't know how I did that, but I do hope you guys enjoy everything I do. It really does make me happy when we have a small audience that just they always give me great feedback. They're like, man, you're great, keep going at it. Those words that encourage you just keep you going. So thank you guys so much. Hopefully you guys enjoyed episode 3. Episode 4, don't know when it'll drop, but I do hope that I'm going to be dropping things on streaming platforms soon. Anyway, I love you guys so much. Episode 3 has finished. Have a good one.